Imagine a scenario where the world's most powerful navy faces a potential invasion threat. What would be their response? We're looking at a hypothetical situation where the Chinese military could potentially invade Taiwan. In this scenario, the US Navy would have a critical role to play. Their strategy? Targeting Chinese amphibious ships that would be essential for such an invasion. But it's not as straightforward as sending a missile or two. There's a protective ring of combatants and decoy ships that would need to be neutralized first. This is a significant challenge, one that requires a substantial stockpile of the longest range and most lethal weapons. And the US Navy is taking this challenge head-on. They've boosted their weapons spending by over 70% from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2024. That's a massive leap in a short span of time, reflecting the gravity of the potential threat. But the increase in spending isn't just about buying more weapons, it's also about investing in the production of these weapons. After the Cold War, the Navy had stopped building torpedoes, but with China emerging as a top adversary, torpedo production was restarted. This, along with increased missile orders, has put considerable pressure on the industry to step up, so we're seeing a significant response from the US Navy to this hypothetical threat. They're investing heavily in their armament, ramping up production, and preparing to counteract any potential invasion. Such a significant increase in arms expenditure is a testament to the seriousness of the perceived threat. But what happens when this response hits a roadblock? If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you can, please support our channel by buying us a cup of coffee. The link is in the description below. In an ideal world, increased spending would translate to more weapons. But we live in the real world, where supply chain challenges exist. Imagine a sprawling assembly line, where an intricate dance of parts and pieces come together to form the sophisticated weapon systems that our military relies on. This dance, however, has been stumbling as of late. The US Navy has been working tirelessly to increase its stockpile of key munitions in response to potential threats. The spending on weapons has seen a surge of over 70% from fiscal year 2022 to 2024. Yet, despite this significant financial commitment, production has been hampered by persistent supply chain challenges. These challenges have left the Navy with fewer of the longest range and most lethal weapons that would be crucial in a conflict scenario. The production of these high-end weapons is a complex process requiring a wide array of components, many of which must meet stringent quality and performance standards. The supply chain for these components is equally complex, and disruptions in any part of it can have a significant impact on the overall production. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the Navy has included a whopping $380 million in its fiscal year 2024 budget plans, specifically to address these supply chain bottlenecks. This allocation is not just about throwing money at the problem, but rather a strategic investment aimed at strengthening the resilience of the supply chain. This includes measures such as multi-year procurement contracts, which provide suppliers with a more predictable demand, and thereby encourage them to invest in capacity expansion. It also involves direct investment in the supply chain, helping to ensure that suppliers have the resources they need to meet increased demand. However, addressing supply chain issues is not a quick fix. It's a process that requires time and strategic planning. It's about identifying the bottlenecks, understanding their root causes, and then implementing solutions. It's about building relationships with suppliers and working collaboratively to overcome challenges. And most importantly, it's about maintaining a steadfast commitment to ensuring that our Navy has the weapons it needs to protect our nation's interests. Because in the end, that's what this is all about. History has a way of repeating itself, doesn't it? The Cold War may be long over, but its echoes are still felt today. As we navigate through the new geopolitical landscape, we find ourselves revisiting strategies from decades past. The Cold War, that long and icy standoff between two superpowers, has left indelible marks on our military strategy, and those imprints are resurfacing as we grapple with emerging threats. One such echo is the resurgence of torpedo production. For years following the Cold War, the US Navy halted torpedo production. The perceived threats had changed, and torpedoes, those silent killers of the deep, were deemed less necessary in a world where the focus had shifted from sea to air and cyberspace. But as the geopolitical tides turned and China emerged as a top adversary, the need for these underwater weapons resurfaced. So the Navy was back in the torpedo business, reviving production lines that had been dormant for years. But restarting something that's been idle is never as simple as flipping a switch. It's akin to waking a sleeping giant, and this giant was slow to rise. The increased demand for missiles, a direct response to the escalating tension, added a new strain on the industry. The sudden surge in orders was like a shock to the system. Manufacturers, suppliers, and everyone involved in the production chain had to adapt quickly. And let's just say adaptation is often easier said than done. It's like trying to sprint after a long period of rest. Your muscles protest, your lungs burn, but you push through because you know you have to. That's exactly what the industry is doing now, pushing through the growing pains to meet the escalating demand. But the pressure on the industry to ramp up production is only part of the story. The strain of increased demand is immense, but it's not the only challenge the Navy faces. As we'll explore in the next segment, there are physical barriers to surmount as well. So, stay with us as we delve deeper into the complexities of this issue. The pressure on the industry is immense, but it's not the only challenge the Navy faces. Rocket motors and electronics. Two crucial components for weapon production, but what happens when only a handful of companies can make them? This question brings us to the heart of the production barriers faced by the U.S. Navy as they strive to ramp up their munitions stockpile. Firstly, let's delve into the issue with rocket motors. Not all companies have the know-how or the capability to manufacture these complex and highly technical components. To meet the stringent standards of military-grade rocket motors, a company not only needs advanced technology, but also a skilled workforce trained in this specialized field. This scarcity of qualified manufacturers has created a bottleneck in the supply chain, slowing down the production of essential munitions. On the other hand, we have electronics, the brains behind most modern weaponry. The production of military-grade electronics requires state-of-the-art facilities and highly skilled engineers. Moreover, these components must be resilient enough to withstand the harsh conditions of a battlefield, further complicating their production. As with rocket motors, there are only a few companies capable of producing these critical components, leading to another bottleneck in the supply chain. The gravity of these production barriers cannot be understated. In a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape, the U.S. Navy's ability to swiftly increase its arms stockpile could be the difference between deterrence and conflict. Yet the hurdles are not insurmountable. The U.S. Navy is proactively tackling these challenges head-on. They are investing heavily to address the supply chain bottlenecks, including a significant allocation of $380 million outlined in their fiscal year 2024 budget. They are also pursuing multi-year procurement contracts to ensure a steady supply of these vital components. The challenge is daunting, but the Navy is not standing still. Rocket motors, a crucial component for weapon production. But what happens when there's a bottleneck in their production? Let's delve deeper into this issue. Rocket motors provide the propulsion system for missiles, making them indispensable for weapon production. However, the manufacturing process is intricate and requires sophisticated technology and a highly skilled workforce. Not many companies possess these capabilities, thus creating a bottleneck in the supply chain. This bottleneck has tangible effects on the U.S. Navy's munitions stockpile. With a limited number of manufacturers, the production of weapons slows down. This slowdown could potentially impact the Navy's readiness in the face of a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. The bottleneck in rocket motors is indeed a significant challenge, but the Navy, known for its strategic prowess and adaptability, is not letting this hurdle slow them down. They are investing heavily in addressing this issue and are also pursuing multi-year procurement contracts. These steps will ensure a steady supply of rocket motors and help the Navy maintain its pace in weapon production. The bottleneck in rocket motors is a significant challenge, but the Navy is strategizing to overcome it. When faced with a challenge, the Navy does what it does best: strategize and adapt. In the midst of supply chain obstacles, they're not just taking small steps, but making giant leaps to devise a plan. A central part of this plan is the pursuit of multi-year procurement contracts. This strategy involves locking in long-term agreements, creating a safety net of sorts that ensures a consistent supply of essential components. It's a savvy move designed to sidestep short-term disruptions while giving suppliers the confidence to boost their production, knowing they have a guaranteed buyer. But the Navy's strategizing doesn't stop at procurement alone. They're also making significant investments in the supply chain. A hefty allocation of $380 million has been set aside in the fiscal year 2024 budget plans to directly tackle the bottlenecks in the supply chain. This substantial financial pledge shows that the Navy is serious about solving these issues and is to back their words with action. This investment is prioritizing areas hit hardest by bottlenecks, specifically the production of rocket motors and electronics. By working closely with a handful of companies qualified to build these crucial components, the Navy is not just ensuring steady supply, but also bolstering the domestic manufacturing industry. Undoubtedly, the journey toward increasing munitions production is fraught with challenges. But the Navy is committed to navigating these rough waters. They're strategizing, investing, and constantly focusing on areas hit hardest by these challenges. By doing so, they're demonstrating a steadfast resolve to keep the United States at forefront of global military might. Will they? Only time will tell, and a story for another day. In a world where time is money, how does the Navy make things easier, faster, and cheaper? The Navy is not just relying on traditional methods to overcome these hurdles. They're embracing modern technologies to streamline production and reduce costs. One innovative approach is the adoption of additive manufacturing or 3D printing. This technology allows for faster production times and reduced costs. It enables on-demand production, cutting down on storage needs and reducing the risk of shortages. It's not just about making things, it's about making them better, faster, and more efficiently. But the Navy's innovative spirit doesn't stop at technology. They're also forging strategic partnerships with private companies. By leveraging the expertise and resources of the private sector, the Navy can reduce costs while still ensuring the quality and reliability of their equipment. It's a win-win situation. Private companies get a steady stream of business, and the Navy gets the components they need at a competitive price. And they're not just looking at the present, they're looking at the future, using predictive analytics to speed up supply chain processes. By analyzing data and predicting future trends, they can proactively address potential issues before they become problems. It's not just about reacting to challenges, but anticipating them. In the face of adversity, the Navy continues to innovate and adapt, proving that it's not just about spending more, but spending smarter. Through technology, partnerships, and predictive analytics, they're not just keeping pace with the challenges of the modern world, they're staying one step ahead.